Good morning. Happy New Year's Eve and Merry Christmas. We're still celebrating Christmas here. We've got the whole 12 days going. We're just halfway through. I love the poem we just read from the Gospel of John. These are the first verses of John's Gospel. You know, John's Gospel is being written down a few generations after Jesus, at an important moment of change for the followers of Jesus for whom it's written. These people have heard about Jesus, and perhaps some of them have had their own experience of God's presence with them. And now they're gathered together in this small community, this new movement. It's just getting off the ground. And these people are trying to figure out what all this means for them, and how it calls them to do some things differently, and how it calls on them to do some things the same as they've done before. And at this particular moment of change for the community that John's Gospel is coming from, it is particular to them in this place. This community is Jewish, like Jesus was. And the followers of Jesus, their practices and beliefs are increasingly different from those other people in the community who are not followers of Jesus. And now these followers of Jesus are leaving the synagogue that they know. Maybe they're getting pushed out by others, maybe some of both. And it's really traumatic for these followers of Jesus. They are leaving their social network, leaving their economic network, the way they get jobs. Some of them are separating from their families by making this change. It's really traumatic. And John is writing to this people in this traumatic moment. And he begins with a poem. And it's really a poem that was probably set to music. It's a hymn, one sung by this same group of people to whom he's writing in worship. That's what many people think. And now it feels really different, doesn't it? Parts of what we just read, the majority of it, it's a congregational hymn. Listen to part of it again. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. This new thing you're experiencing, it's not really new. The Word was with God from the beginning, and it's life that came from him, and light, even light that shines in darkness. It's my translation now. This passage is less of an explanation, and it's more of an experience. It's the experience of music and singing. In good moments, you feel it all the way into your soul. I would try it right now. You would not feel it all the way into your soul if I did. The experience that this thing, this new thing, it goes all the way back to the beginning. And even in difficult times like this group of people must have been experiencing, it is the source of life and light. It is still open to them, especially open for them. This is not just intellectual knowing. One priest, Richard Rohr, he says that biblical knowing is more akin to face-to-face presence. It's full body knowing, a cellular knowing. Those are his words. That's why this gospel to the community in the middle of change begins with a hymn. because in that moment they needed to be reminded of what they already knew. That they were connected to the word spoken from before time. The word that speaks still. The light brighter than any darkness. Author Phyllis Tickle writes that in our 2,000-year history, the church has undergone periods of significant change about every 500 years. We're reading from the Gospel of John, the first of those changes today. 500 years later was the decline of the Roman Empire and the changes that brought to what had become by that time the empire's religion. 500 years later is the split between East and West and the Great Schism, when Eastern Orthodox and Western Catholic churches took different paths and shaped later history in very different ways. 500 years after that came the Protestant Reformation and all the changes that brought to the newly created Protestant parts of Christianity and to the Catholic parts too. 500 years after that, and it is you and me, right now. And I don't have to tell you that we're in a moment of significant change. We know this. The religious landscape around us is changing. And we have changed too. Our own Episcopal Church is more liturgical than it used to be several decades ago. Holy Communion is our typical Sunday service. Many of you remember when that was not the case. That wasn't true. We've recovered older ways of being church, more sacramental, more experiential. We touch and we feel more. It's part of this overall change in the religious world around us. There's nothing magic about 500 years here. The point is not a number. The point is that we go through significant periods of reformation, of change. We've done it before, and we will do it again. Tickle writes that what she calls the age of belief, that's her phrase, is ending. And what she calls the age of the Spirit, again, her phrase, that's what's beginning. She says that for the last several centuries, the entry point into organized Christianity was belief. You signed up to believe certain things, and once you signed up for those beliefs, then you became part of the community. And then you came to practice the implications of those beliefs in that order. The author writes that this sequence is operating in a different order for many people now. Increasingly, folks have an experience of the power of the implications first. They have an experience of the holy. And then they look to join community. And then they come to trust in what that community holds true. That's the age of the Spirit. That's what she calls it. It's what's ushering in this disruption and change. And some of it is difficult, and some of this change is really exciting. It's going to call forth the very best from us to speak to people now in ways that are meaningful and authentic to them, to speak to ourselves now in ways that are meaningful and authentic to us. And as individuals, we have 500-year changes, if you will, too, from time to time. Periods of disruption when the ways of thinking and acting that constituted our lives in the past no longer work for us, when they stop producing meaning, or when the strategies we used to keep us safe in the past, when they're too limiting now. Sometimes these periods of disruption come from ideas that quit working for us. But much more often, I'd say they come from experiences that happen to us. When the circumstances of our lives change, when the kids grow up, when new relationships start, when we lose people we love, think about your own 500-year disruptions And I bet this is true for you. So much of the time, they're external events that we are reacting to. There are times when something real changes. Even the new things we want, they come with changes that are real. Rohr writes his words again, authentic God experience always burns you, yet does not destroy you, just as the burning bush did to Moses. But most of us are not prepared for such burning, nor even told to expect it. My words now, part of what happens in these experiences is that they burn away what's no longer real for us. And if we're honest, they will show us what is. We are at this annual change moment for us, the start of a new year. And we're at a change moment for our parish as we begin an interim period after Channing Smith's departure as our rector. And interim periods are wonderful gifts. They make it so clear that the church is not one person, that ministry takes all of us. Your commitment to this place and to the church's mission is what powers what we do. You are the ministers here. And clergy changes just make that so clear. And this particular interim period will invite us to be honest about what it is that we do well and about what needs to change. And that's going to take all of us too. And let me say to you that I am excited about these tasks. And I am particularly excited to undertake these tasks with you. There is not a more capable or committed congregation anywhere. When it is us in these moments of change, when it's you in a moment of change in your life, when it's all of us together in these moments, some welcome, some scary, some you'd rather not have, some you chose, others you didn't. Sometimes all of these things mix together. When that is you, when it is us, it makes us like our ancestors in faith, the community writing John's gospel. And perhaps we can join in their song, singing of the truth that we know in our minds, through our experiences, in our souls. The word spoken from before time speaks here still. The word speaks in us, to us, through us. It is light. Even when we know it differently than before, it's the light that can overcome any darkness. What has come into being in the Word was life. And the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness. As we begin this new year, may this song from so many years ago, may it be our song too. And may it fill us, our minds, our hearts, our actions, our experiences, our souls. Amen.